This is TayTiana Bryant, homework 5, FSM diagrams. The first one, I have a more 5-bit overlapping, and here's my sequence 1 0 1 0 1, and here's the diagram that shows what is going to happen. My VHDL code. Here we start out with our entity, the reset clock in our input, and our Y as our output. In our architecture, we define our signal, next state, and current state, and it's a 2 down to 0 since it's a 5-bit, which means it's going to be 3 bits for the states and next state. Now in this process block, we are setting our reset and clock. If the reset equals 1, then your current state equals 0. And else if clock event and clock equals 1, then current state equals next state. Here we have the process block for the Moore diagram that I did. When you're in state 0 and you have an input of 1, then the next state is state 1. Else, you'll remain in state 0 and your output will be 0. When in state 1 and you have an input of 0, the next state is going to be state 2. Else, the next state is going to be state 1 and your output is 0. And here you can see, continue down, it repeats. It's just different inputs, and when we get to our last state, our output will be 1. Now if we go to the wave diagram simulation, we can see what our next state and current state is. So we start out with looking at this, and I'm going to go back to the test bench. We have a clock divider. Here our clock is 0, it's going to clock divided by 2, and if it's 1, it's going to do the same. In our test bench, I am testing the sequence 1 0 1 0 1 1 0 1 0 1, and here we have to set our clock reset to 1 and reset it back to 0 so it won't continuously go into the same state 0 and state 1. Here is just an extra input to see what will happen after the states are complete. So currently we are in state 0, and our next state is going to be state 1 with the input of 1. Next we are in state 1, and our next state is state 2. Now we're in state 2, and we have an input of 0. Now we are in, that's the same one. So here our next state is 3. Now we're in state 3, and our next state is 4. Now we're in state 4, and our next state is 0, and then we're in state 4, and our next state is in state 5, and we're in state 5, which completes our sequence, and our output is 1. Next we are doing the melee. Here my sequence is 1 1 0 1, and here I have the diagram for that, showing what's going to happen for each state. So the melee overlapping, we're going to have the same beginning as the more overlapping. We still have to do a process block for our reset and our clock as here, stated here. Then we have the same idea for the melee for the more, but the difference is that we include our output in the melee and not in the more. So we end our if statement after, and the more we ended our if statement before we put our output. So I'll run through this. Basically, when you're in state 0, if you have an input of 1, then the next state is going to be 1. Else you're saying state 0 and the output is 0. My apologies. Again, state 1, input 1, next state 2. And this does the same thing, just different states and different inputs of 0 and 1. And lastly, our input at state 5 is 1, and we're going to the next state 2, and our output is going to be 1. That's when the sequence has been detected. Now for our test bench. Here is the test bench for what we'll be testing. It is the same as the more. The only difference is we're testing a sequence differently. Our sequence is 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Here's an extra one just to see what will happen after that. Now we're going to start our simulation. And here we're going to add the current state and next state. So when we do the wave, we can see what our next state and current state is. I'm going to expand it. Okay, so now we're in state 0 and our next state is 1. We have an input of 1. Now we're in state, the same state we were in. Now we're in state 1 with the input of 1. And we're going, our next state shall be state 2. Now we're in state 2. Our input, now we're in state 2. In state 2, our input is 1. Oops, I went back. We're in state 2. Our input is 0. Output is 0. And our next state is state 3. Now we're in state 3 with the input of 1. And our next state is state 4, and our output is 0. Now we're in state 4 with the input of 1, and our output is still 0. Now we're in state 5. Our input is 0, and it's going back to state 0, and our output is 1.